Islam. Let's rise and do our honors. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Mother and Father of the universe.
Allah, the Mother and Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide. And our salvation. By night and by day. By through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Amen. Ashe. Islam. So we're going to start today with the Psych War. By LaRue Ned. The interracial battle for mind control. LaRue, L-A-R-U-E, Ned, N-E-D-D. If we accept the belief, page 8, if we choose to identify with our ancestor, and if we believe they were slaves, we will automatically associate certain beliefs about them to ourselves because we come from them. We will consciously or subconsciously see that same inferiority in ourselves as being either hidden or manifest. We judge a tree by its fruit and vice versa. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit. Therefore, there is no large-scale movement to rebuild African culture in America. We call ourselves Afro-Americans when it is clear that America has never demonstrated a willingness to accept black people as equals. Our history is full of black people who have sought to move the masses to higher levels of consciousness. Yet the problems of our race continue to get worse because deep within we believe that we are a product of inferior human beings, slaves. A slave is one who has been totally defeated. On the other hand, even under extremely oppressive conditions, we can still see the genius of black people coming through. Black African and American history is full of this genius. Even today, in areas where we can compete freely, we dominate. The same genius that we use to dominate in sports and entertainment can be applied to other areas as well. And it is this genius that puts fear in the hearts of white people. And this fear motivates many of them to become racist consciously and subconsciously. Okay. So, we understand as adepts that what he's speaking about is the melanated people. We don't say black people and African, and we know those are fictions, etc. Right? But for the sake of today's class, we're gonna allow those terms to prove the point of why they're used against us, right? So, admitting that, you know, there are these people that are always disadvantaged, right? And it's based on them having the mentality that their ancestors were inferior. So if your ancestors are inferior, then automatically you're going to be inferior, right? Okay. In law, a slave is also a ward, right? A slave is also property, right? Like, this is what we know that we're applying to this what he's saying, to be clear as to why this is the situation that we're in. It's not because of what people have done to us. It's because of us putting it on ourselves. Right? We put these happenings on ourselves because of how we look at ourselves. Right? So in 1913 now, right, Joali comes and says that this is a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. And this is 1913 and 1929. Between that era of time, this documentation was put forward. Right? So this is a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and to go back to that state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens, according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in City Hall and among the officials in your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship, by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of the government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire their unity and mind back to their own free national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national constitution. They have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name. because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro leads in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners who were at the time without power with a constitutional body of power. At that time, 1865, the free national constitution that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by a free national constitution to be free and equal, since the constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people. For the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers, and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man, that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens, to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way. Excuse me. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way to their forefathers, and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which is being committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment, in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways, and action and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South, and I have examined the conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light from the prophet. Islam. So what do we get from that reading or that writing?
I get something every single time I hear it or read it. I get more. Well, the thing I got today, right now, is responsibility. This is about us being responsible for what's happening to ourselves.
Right. And that's what comes with when we truly know thyself. Because when you really know thyself, now you have to be responsible for what you know.
Exactly.
Right? The good and the bad. So a lot of what's happening right now is the psychological stimulation of the people in order to kick off something racial, right? All these shootings and stuff going on, right? Now we know that everything is by design. So when certain things happen, automatically, you know, antennas are up and we're surveying the scene to see what's really going on from our perspective, right? Based on our level of study, right? And it's always coming down to a war between some people who are called the minority and the people who act like they're the majority. Right? As soon as we get into black, white, color games, that's what it's about. So right now, because all I'm seeing in the paper and news and internet is, you know, black youth getting shot and white people in their car shooting at black people and whatever. So they're setting up this, you know, they're making the waters starting to get rough, right? And they're doing that because they already have the basket at the end of the flow to catch, right? So then all they want us to do is just jump in it, because once you jump in it, and you can't go against the flow, you can't go against the grain, right? All these brothers down here that get haircuts, right? Let a barber go against the grain of your hair with a razor, see what? See if you're gonna like your haircut. Because you can't go against the grain. You have to go with the flow. That's how the ancient people got over the Atlantic Ocean into the Americas after the Great Earthquake. They went with the flow of the water going to the landmass that they want to go to. And then when they're there, they follow the flow of that to wherever else that they're going to go to. Right? So we have to go with the flow. Right? Now, we don't have to jump in to get caught in the net. Right? We don't have to accept the position that our ancestors were slaves because some people choose to celebrate the abolition of slavery. Right? Of black people. And then black really means pale. So yeah, some people have a right to celebrate black slavery and black people being enslaved. If you look at it from that perspective, right?
Right back to knowing thyself.
Knowing thyself. Because when you know thyself, then you can know other people. Because those people came after us. So once we know ourselves, then we know everybody. And once we know everybody's game, we know everybody's part that they play. Right? So these minorities, these people that put on themselves this tag of being the slave people that came over here on the ship, and you know, that's their position. And that's what they're going to go with. Yeah, we know that our ancestors were gods and goddesses and etc. But they don't say that we're that. They say we're slaves. They say we're enslaved. We've been under psychological trauma by the European because of what they did to us in slavery. Willie Lynch letter. This and that is what's making us. Right? Like, what if the Willie Lynch letter didn't have to do with quote unquote black people?
Then those same black people who cling to this whole pseudo memory of being slaves and having slaves as ancestors would find something else to cling to.
Exactly.
If the Willie Lynch letter alluded to other people, that would be fine. Let them have their let them have their misery that they can celebrate every year. You know what I mean? But they would find something else. It boils, these people who are running this show and setting up all this stuff, they know us. They know our people, and they know that we are not proactive. We are reactive. And these are all social experiments. They can do anything, and they know what to do, when to do it, what we're going to do, and the whole outcome. And that's what we got to start to understand is this is a game they're playing with us. And so we don't have to play their game.
Right.
But how else are we going to play? If we keep thinking, well, I'm a slave and my grandfather was a slave, and then yes, I'm going to keep playing their game. But when you start to know yourself and you start to understand, no, that's not my history, then you start to understand a whole lot of other things as well. You don't have to play their game, and you can be proactive. You can see this stuff coming long before they even think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's the thing. And it's sad that our people don't want to hear this.
Yeah. Right. And they don't want to because they're in utter darkness of sin. Why would they want to hear this if they're in utter darkness of sin? So I know what Jolly said, what's all you mouths doing here? What are you guys doing here? There's only going to be a handful of you guys saved. I count you guys on my fingers. How much are you going to be saved? Like, what are you guys doing here?
See, so there's some more finger left.
And I have fingers left over. Right? Islam fam. Right? And I have fingers left over still. Right? Proving that, yeah, everybody's not going to be on this. But the select few that's going to be on this are going to be the ones that make this matter. Right? So going back to the psych war again. Self-destruction is not a natural desire. As the life force in us naturally moves us toward the perpetuation of our life and towards happiness, we are inclined to see self-destruction as coming from forces that are not natural to us. If we had known better as a people, we would have avoided the extreme hardship of the so-called slave days, as well as our present condition of epidemic levels of divorce, crime, unemployment, poverty, and death. These are not conditions that people intentionally impose upon themselves. Some of us may doubt that black people are under attack because we do not see armies moving into our neighborhoods. Yet a psychological offensive can be just as deadly as a physical offensive. In some ways more so. We may doubt that we are in a psychological war because we have not heard a declaration of war announced on the radio or television by attackers. However, actions speak louder than words. We can see that the overwhelming majority of black people are restricted to economic and emotional poverty. These are not conditions that we desire. It is misleading to say that black people as a whole are doing well because a few are doing well. We may see so-called progress because black people are still becoming the first black man or women to use this and that. The schools are integrated now. We may see ourselves as being part of the greatest country in the world. We have the civil rights. We may believe that civil rights had given us even more freedom. When we see who is perpetrating all the violence and division in our race, community, and home, we see that it is mostly black people doing it to black people. The white man isn't coming into our homes and putting guns to our heads and forcing us to break up our families or kill each other. The aim in a psychological attack is to get the people under attack to work against themselves. It appears as though it is black people who are waging war on black people.
And you actually do mind even the first couple of sentences of that section? Because there was something
How about we just read it all over again? Yeah. Self-destruction is not a natural desire. As the life force in us naturally moves us toward the perpetuation of our life and towards happiness, we are inclined to see self-destruction as coming from forces that are not natural to us. If we had known better as a people, we would have avoided the extreme hardship of the so-called slave days, as well as our present condition of epidemic levels of divorce, crime, unemployment, poverty, and death.
Yeah, see that? It's a couple sentences before we talk about self-destruction.
Yeah.
And that's the key right there.
Mm-hmm.
Self-destruction means you're destroying yourself.
Right.
Nobody else is doing it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can sit up here talking about the white man till the cows come home. You know what I mean? It's self-destruction.
Yeah.
It's so clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are not conditions that people intentionally impose upon themselves. Some of us may doubt that black people are under attack because we do not see armies moving into our neighborhoods. Yet, a psychological offensive can be just as deadly as a physical offensive, in some ways more so. We may doubt that we are in a psychological war because we have not heard a declaration of war announced on the radio or television by attackers. However, actions speak louder than words. We can see that the overwhelming majority of black people are restricted to economic and emotional poverty. These are not conditions that we desire. It is misleading to say that black people as a whole are doing well because a few are doing well. We may see so-called progress because black people are still becoming the first black man or woman to do this and that. The schools are integrated now. We may see ourselves as being part of the greatest country in the world. We may believe that civil rights have given us even more freedom. When we see who is perpetrating all the violence and division in our race, community, and home, we see it is mostly black people doing it to black people. The white man isn't coming into our homes and putting guns to our heads, forcing us to break up our families or kill each other. The aim in a psychological attack is to get the people under attack to work against themselves. It appears as though it is black people who are waging war on black people. Right? So why are these black people? So now we realize that, okay, it's not the white man that's doing anything. It's our own people that's doing it. Right? Why is it that our own people choose to go this way? Right? Why do our people choose to be the Judases?
Is that a question?
Yeah, sarcastic question.
Well, first of all, if you're going to use the word choice, that's a big thing, because if it's a decision, for want of a better word, made under stress or duress or what have you, or when you don't think you have any options because you're still thinking you're a Negro, black, or colored person, then it's not a choice anyway.
Right.
You're still living in a box where I can only do this or I can only do that, and you don't realize that you can do anything you want to do. You know, you don't even understand that concept because you don't believe that you're entitled.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So we want to give supreme honors to the Moors after the Prophet that kept the literature alive. Because without that literature right there, like without that, the Moorish movement would have actually been lost forever. Right? So, you know, and the Moors that continue to put these books out, you know, and not playing copyright games with the Prophet's literature and actually photocopying the stuff, right? Whether it's Arab chamber books, whatever, and get it out to the people. Because we can't hide anymore, anything. We can't hold back stuff because, you know, well, you know, we can't give this to the people. Right? Like, it's not that time anymore. Right? It's Aquarian age right now. So all these books that you have stacked up at your house or whatever, right? Put them in a bag and then go on the bus and give them to youths. Because they're just sitting at your house anyway doing nothing. Right? Because
right, you know, like what we are in Batters, there's a big bookstore.
Yeah.
No, the one that
The downstairs one? There's one up, yeah.
I went there this way. I don't know how come I find myself just walking on butters. That's what I want, right? And I bumps in there. If you see the sale, books for books, all kind of books, books were selling there, all for sale, and the music that they play in the bookstore is to say stop robbing the people. Somebody make a sound, stop thieving from the people, give the people the money's worth. And I spent 2 hours out on the ground. And I'm looking through about 2 or 3 books, but go in there, the books, I tell you, psychic book, all them books selling out. The Jew, they got a whole set with Jews, Christianity, Muslim, everything. The people are just selling out. He said, how long the weather is good, they will have the sale all the time.
Sure.
Yes, it's selling out.
Right. So when we read a lot of the words of the prophet, it's something, it's like a rarity, you know what I mean? Like you have to get anxious, like, okay, we're gonna hear something from him, because there was supposed to be nothing. And luckily, like he said, there were few faithful Moors, few is not many. Few is, holy smokes, out of all these millions of people, that's the only people that he's gonna say is backing him. Few, right? When everything that he did was for the nation, he didn't do anything for himself personally at all, right? So this is from the prophecies and hadiths, and we're gonna read a few of these, right? So in the section about America and the Europeans, the Europeans went to the Moroccan government and asked for permission to come over here to northwest Amexem to develop this land. They were given a 50-year mandate to do so. Then the Europeans went to an old sheikh and asked him to give them some people to help them to develop this land. The sheikh told them to take those Moors because they're not going to do anything. Right? So that's the us selling us into slavery.
That's right.
Not because we were evil, mean people and we were trying to, get rid of prisoners of war. But there's only going to be a handful of you saved. And the rest of you are property that's going to be going back to the government. Right? And that's the only 2 options that are available right now. 2012, right? Like that's all that's available. Either you're going to be on the side of the Republic, which is de jure, or you're going to be on the side of the democracy, which is de facto. Right? Like these are the only options. Right? And foreseeing that, Noble Drew Ali set up a way to keep us on the de jure side at all times, no matter what. Because of this implosion that was going to happen. Because he's the one that caused the implosion. He's the one that caused the stock market crash. So why wouldn't he put things in place to protect the Moors, since he came here to do everything for the Moors anyways? Why wouldn't he set something up? Right? And that's why he said divine warning for the nations. Because he's a universal prophet and his philosophy is universal. Like, it's not a personal agenda that he came to do. It's not his personal idea that, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to start the Old Canaanland Temple and the Moor Science Temple and then incorporate it and then I'll do all this stuff. Like, it wasn't him. That was the force using him. That's why he's able to be the prophet. because the Most High is in him and using him as a vessel. So I wouldn't even know what's coming and what's to come and where we should go if he's not the shepherd. Right?
Protection.
Yeah, protection. You know what I mean? In protecting the flock, he protects himself. Right? The European is going to have to pay our people off for the work they did in slavery and pay off in compounded interest. One day you will go to the store and there will be soldiers there with guns with bayonets on them, and they will not let you enter. They will order you to move on. Like during the G20, that will happen here. So that's prophecy fulfilling. Even before the G20, that was going on.
1:32 in Melbourne one day. I went home from work, minding my own business, and I saw about 5 soldiers in full gear running down the street with guns. I'm not lying, unless I'm going stark staring mad. And you know, and I keep asking people that take that bus, did they see it? Did they see it? And nobody seems to have seen it. I saw them running down the street like they were doing some kind of a drill.
Yeah.
I don't know if the guns were loaded or anything. They had these rifles and they were running down the street. About 5 or 6.
Prophecy.
Yeah.
Fulfilled.
I mean, you don't see that on the street. You see that in some base or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I saw this in. I'm not lying. I swear.
Like now.
You know, this was about 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's not even ancient. It's 5 years ago. If the European be just, they would have an Asiatic vice president, and if they had an Asiatic president, they would have a European vice president. Prophecy fulfilling. Going on right now. Right? Called it. I'm going to stop the European from thinking and start you to thinking for your own good. The European is our fellow man. If you want European grand sheiks, I can give them to you. The Holy Prophet got tired of Moors always running to Europeans and accepting their verifications over his lessons of freedom and salvation. That sounds like today. With Moors want to go after sovereignty papers and do all these paper card things and start organizations to say that, yeah, this is for the salvation of the people or whatever, when nobody already did all that already. Right? Even that. Right? 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 Running to Europeans and accepting their verifications over his. He's the prophet. But they're going to go with what somebody else says. Right? You know, oh, the Circle 7 is Aquarian gospel. You know, that's Masonic. And everybody run with that. Not putting it into perspective. Right? In 1929, there was a European man, his wife and daughter, outside the meeting of the second annual National Convention, that asked Brother Kirkman Day, where is that little man that used to be around? Brother C. Kirkman Day let him know that the prophet was no longer with us. The Europeans started crying. They were looking for the Holy Prophet. That man was able to save his money during the bank crash because he obeyed the Holy Prophet and took his money out of the bank. Right? That's why he can make a call in the divine plea, in the divine warning to the nations, that I want all you nations out here to help and assist with this. Because I came for everybody this time. Right? I came for everybody this time. I didn't just come for this little section of people that were under whatever they were under. And love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice is what has to manifest in order to fix every single problem that we have on the planet. Just follow what the prophet said. Forget the ego, forget the whatever, just follow what the prophet said. Because he's for real, like he's the for real prophet. That everybody's saying we're the prophet, and everybody's saying, yeah, prophecies, and they say the prophet's gonna come. Well, yeah, like he came in 1913. Everybody missed him, right? You know, why would God come as like the most beautiful, you know what I mean? You know, the God's gonna come as the bearded, worded lady. That's a prostitute. God's not gonna come as the most beautiful beauty pageant lady, right? They know what the European man said. Where's that little man? Right? The ancient, they always talk about, oh yeah, the ancient people, you know, they were short people. What? Right? Okay, well, he's from the direct lineage because he's the prophet. So everything is right there. Well, you don't want to accept it. Holy instructions to the Moorish. We the Moors have the blood of every nation flowing through our veins, thereby bringing about a cross spirit. Right? And that's just because we're the first. And if we're our ancestors, then obviously everybody's going to be in us, because like, we're generations later. Yeah, they came from us. So, right, everybody's one. I didn't tell anyone where I was born or who my parents were, because I didn't want people to make a shrine out of the place or make over my parents like was done to Joseph and Mary. Right? So we'll stop there. So we can talk about how come he didn't want to talk about it. Because at that time, there was big case between the United States and the Henry Turner family, which were the Washita, that beat up on the United States, and Noble Drew Ali is part of that family through his mother, who's Henry Turner's sister. So that was his uncle that won the case. And the Washita also recognized Noble Drew Ali as the prophet, the last prophet. Matter of fact, Washita recognized Noble Drew Ali as the fifth prince of the Washita. So his fame and nobility isn't just from some European perspective. Like, oh yeah, well the queen knew him and this person knew him and that's how he got his authority. Or, well, he was prince of the Washita before he was born. Right? And this is what we were talking about yesterday with the lineage coming through the father or the mother. And the lineage has to come through the mother. Right? The miracle birth. Right? Mary, the mother. The lineage had to come through her. Father wasn't even, he didn't talk about him. It doesn't matter in the story. You don't see the picture of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus together, the family. How come you only show Mary and Jesus out there? And leave Joseph out of there like he's not nobody? Because he's not nobody. He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Yeah, he might have stirred the pot. But he didn't cut up anything and taste and, you know. Not go there. Right? So he didn't want that you know, popularity of his parents because of the whole case, and you know what I mean, that being a big deal back then. Like some black people actually beat the United States in Supreme Court for land. So now the land's theirs now, and then that's his family. So you know, like when the will comes for Henry Turner, like you don't think Noble Drew Ali's name was on it? You know what I mean? Who's he gonna pass the stuff down to? When his sister being the one the prophet's gonna come through his sister, right? So you think he didn't know, Henry? About the prophecies of, you know what I mean, the prophet coming, right? Because now this is not going into black history now. This is now going into spiritual history, but the most known spiritual history in the Americas is native, quote unquote, right? So this is going out of black history into like native stuff, because even though his name was Henry Turner, he was Cherokee. So he was a Cherokee. So this is just part of the custom, the culture. Right? It's not black history that you're going to find. Majority of people, they read Henry Turner and they think European. Don't lie, yes you do. Because you do. Not knowing that if you see Turner, maybe it was Tanika. And then Tanika is an indigenous tribe of the Washita. So Turner might not have been Turner every time you read Turner in black history. Turner might have been Tanika, that, you know, that's how it sounds to the European, because they don't have enough melanin in their ears to hear stuff properly. So Tanika sounds like Turner. And Washita sounds like Washington. And Douglas sounds like Douglas. Right? But he's still our fellow man, like not taking away anything from anybody because they don't have enough melanin in their ears and they can't hear. And they don't have enough melanin to, you know, feel the vibe and, you know, get down like how we get down. Right? He's still our fellow man. You know what I mean? Right? We, the Moors, are a hard-headed, stiff-necked, mean set of people that have never done anything except at the point of a sword. So that's what we're up against. When we say in psych war, it's black people doing it to black people. Okay, we're up against hard-headed, stiff-necked, mean people that have never done anything except at the point of a sword. So to them, like that's what the agents are. That's how hard they're coming, because they're hard-headed, stiff-necked. You know what I mean? Like it's like we were talking about the downtown. You know, we're gonna go and we're gonna give people Morris Guy newspaper for free. Okay, yeah, here's the paper. You know, oh no, I don't want it. You know, bye, gone. Yeah, but it's free. Okay, well, I have to go. Sure. You're free. Just a newspaper. Right?
No time to read.
You know what?
No time to read.
Right.
No people ain't ready. You know, a lot of people ain't ready.
Yeah. Hard-headed, stiff-necked people.
That's fear, though. You are afraid. We're afraid of our own people, and that comes from not knowing ourselves.
Right.
And you see,
Yes.
now you see someone with a fez now walking down the street with a newspaper. You automatically, these people are thinking automatically there's something negative, something unsavory. There's something wrong with them.
Right.
Well, if there's something wrong with them, take their newspaper and find out what it is. You know what I mean?
It makes sense.
Don't be stupid. You know, you're going to take the Globe and Mail and the Toronto Sun and the Toronto Star and the Share and all these other papers because, you know, they're going to give you the truth. But you're still afraid of your own people.
Yeah.
I wonder. You got to know.
I'll tell you one aspect of it too is because a lot of our people are searching too, and at the same time we get watered down with this artificial black movement. You know, like you have people on the street downtown promoting this Muslim thing, promoting this Christian thing, promoting all types of things that don't have anything to do with the spiritual upliftment. And then you go through that phase, and you're like, you know what? This ain't doing yeah, this ain't doing nothing for me. You know what I'm saying?
So then when you even give it a little
A look. So when you have someone real, like Cujo coming down the street and he's giving you something authentic, by the time you see him, your mind is already gone. You're just in a different place.
If you're truly searching, you don't stop searching until you find what it is you're looking for. That's the first thing. Okay, so I don't care how many people came to you and said, here, I got something for you, and then it turns out it was a dud. So then, if you stop, if you stop it, it's because, how does the saying go? You never know how close you got to getting where you need to go because you gave up before you should have, or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing here. The point is, how can you call yourself a searcher? How can you really say that you're interested in your own betterment and you're trying to get somewhere and you're trying to do for your people and for yourself? So what if every time in the past that you've encountered someone, it's turned out that the information wasn't correct or it didn't do anything for you, like you said? Big deal. It doesn't matter. What does it take for you to accept this newspaper for someone for free? We ain't saying give us some money. Here, just take a look at it. That's all.
I think that's what separates our effort and our thinking from a lot of people. Is that we don't stop searching. Those people have accepted whatever has been given to them. And you question.
Right. And just like you say, accepted. Right? Okay, but in order for something to be accepted, there must be offer.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and that's a contract. So if you're gonna put yourself in a contract to be a subordinate, right? Opposed to be what Prophet already told you. I brought you your nationality and your religion and the title to your vast estate. What do you want me to do? Kill you? What else do you want me to do? Right? Because he's letting us know. Remember, it was a divine warning to the nations. Everybody. 1913 and 1929. This was out there in the ethers for everybody. And then some people, they just took their cape and just went like this, walked the other direction. Right? They didn't see anything. They didn't know what's going on.
And 100 years later, they're doing the same thing.
They're doing the same thing.
That's the biggest shame of all. You think, okay, after 100 years, I mean, 100 years, come on.
100 years.
At least read the paper. Nobody's saying you gotta agree, and nobody's asking you for anything. There's no contract. Just take the paper and take a look and see what it says. But you're searching. You ain't searching. You done happy where you are. As an NBC.
Yep. Straight.
You said no.
I'm good for the night. Long family.
So just on the note of this, there's different levels too. Like there's people, like you said, people searching, but to note, like there's people, or there were people who were in it, and like Fujo said, swung the cape and did a U-turn and did a 180, and and people who were just grimy about it, like just spiritually inept to the point where it was about spirituality and upliftment, and they weren't really about it, but they were there, or they just didn't have the integrity. So here's one such, or and then along with integrity is like just a common, what's the word? Well, but like brother says, counterfeit spirits. So here's a letter to President Roosevelt's wife from bringing the people back into the constitutional fold of government. RVB. A female wrote a letter to Roosevelt's wife in reference to the WPA. She was trying to save her job because it appeared they were bringing in Mexicans to take the jobs. This woman was practically begging for her to help keep her job. She offered information about the Moorish Science Temple and said that she does not believe in what they are doing. She says the Moors ought to go to war. She said Moors don't believe in Christianity, and therefore she will not have anything to do with them. The interesting thing about this letter is that the FBI underlined all of the misspelled words. I don't mean typos, I mean utilizing TWO2 for two, TOO, and FUO for few. Dire for there, THIRE. Here, HEAR for here, HERE. And NO for KNOW on a consistent basis. They were laughing at the ignorance, yet they brought her in for questioning and she agreed to talk. She told of the meetings and the man who, undisclosed name, apparently was the Grand Sheik and how he stayed at the rooming house. The WPA member, who was not a member of the Moorish Science Temple and who wrote the letter to Roosevelt's wife, stated she would keep them abreast of the Moorish activities in her neighborhood. There was never anything bad said about the members or the Grand Sheiks, with the exception of some dirty laundry equivalent to baby mama drama today, wherein one member was interviewed and he said how he was married to one sister and she kicked him out because he had a baby by another. They, the FBI, described him as cooperative but ignorant. The FBI even included in their report the fight the two sisters had with each other over the matter. I found that there was a lot of sisters who turned informants, and at the same time a lot of sisters who sealed up and tried to keep things held together. One sister disclosed that the official greeting is Islam sister. Their lodge had a red flag with a blue six-pointed star as described by the FBI. They had a shield with a blue crescent on a red background and a star inside the crescent. Their monthly dues were 75 cents. There was so much distrust surrounding everyone that during public lectures there would be someone on guard point at the door, and when they spotted anyone coming to the meetings who they thought were there for the purpose of sabotage, they would push a button and the white light would come on inside the lecture hall that would notify the speakers of such an intrusion. This was thought by the FBI to be for the purpose of curbing any of their subversive words. There is no wonder why some of the people running the temples today think that they are to be secretive even unto their own. And then it goes on and there's a little bit more. These are just pieces of that extensive FBI investigation that was carried out. But as you can see, you know, there's people on different level, people on the outskirts of the movement, people just inside of it, people really deep, who all of whom, you know, aren't just ignorant of things, but are also intent on, you know, slowing things down.
Right, and then remember the psych war, right, by Laverne Med. The aim in a psychological attack is to get the people under attack to work against themselves. It appears as though it is black people who are waging war on black people. Right? So that's the issue. The issue is not the white man killed the white man. The issue is that there's sellout, agent, provocateur, dirty Moor niggers that's causing the confusion. And nobody wants to kick those guys out because we want to talk about unity amongst our people.
Yeah.
But let the traitors chill. You don't have to go crazy and kill people and stuff like that. But yo, they just have to get exiled.
Yeah.
Just exile them. Right? That's what nationality is for. Because everybody who doesn't want to nationalize, obviously you're against the agenda of the protocol. And if you're against the agenda of the protocol, then you need to go back to where you come from. But you can't be here. That's the power of nationality. So they feared Hitler. So they fear Hugo Chavez and these people. Because these people have an agenda. And the agenda is not for the democracy. The agenda is for the people. Because that's why they're there for. They're representatives. They're public. The republic is for the public. Right? And the people who are not for the republic are agents. That's what they are. Because this is a republic. You ask anybody, they'll tell you that the Constitution of the United States is the Constitution of the United States. Like that's the, you know, everywhere else has a constitution. Theirs is the Constitution of the United States. Okay, fine, cool. In there it says this is a republic. So there's nothing to argue. That's what it is. Everybody takes their oath on it, right? Those people hire our people to infiltrate, right? So in the King Alfred plan, it outlines, you know, these 12 organizations that are under 24-hour surveillance, because these are the organizations that the minority engage themselves with, right? There are 12 major minority organizations, and all are familiar to the 22 million. Dossiers have been compiled on the leaders of the organizations and can be studied in Washington. Just tell me where you could go get the information on these leaders and organizations that's been under surveillance, right? The material contained in many of the dossiers and our threat to reveal that material has considerably held in check the activities of some of the leaders. So that's the psychological attack. Okay, well, we have some stuff on you, so you better not, or we'll release the stuff, so you better go out there and do what we say you're supposed to do. Because you came to us, remember, offer and acceptance, right? You know, we put the cake on the table. I mean, you want to come eat? Well, the cake's $80 million. Okay, well, I don't have $80 million. Okay, you got your body. So I'll just use you against your own people. Just because gluttony. Because he has a cake at home that he could have ate. But he wanted to come eat from this cake at the table. Nobody's around. You know, not even take a piece to go share with the brethren or nothing. Just sit there, just gluttony on the cake that he didn't put on the table. He doesn't know where it came from, nothing, but he's eating. And he has a cake home. And his brethren have cakes that he just went to their house and they gave him some cake. Right? Okay. Leaders who do not have such unstable material in their dossiers have been approached to take government posts, mostly as ambassadors and primarily in African countries. So, the ones who didn't take all the cake, they just took a little piece. Right? They got little promises. You know what I mean? So we'll make you the, you know, and then they make the, you know, well, Seal is the ambassador of this country. And, you know, Michael Jackson is the ambassador of these people, whatever. Right? Those are like the little perks that they get, you know. Certain people get knighted, and then now you call them sir and stuff like that. You know, when they're not even doing things that the sir is supposed to be doing. If you look up what a sir is, right? The promise of these positions also has materially contributed to a temporary slowdown of minority activities. However, we do not expect these slowdowns to be of long duration, because there are always new and dissident elements joining these organizations with the potential power to replace old leaders. Right? So this is like where you get into, you know, they killed El Hajj, so they put somebody else to hold that post now. Right? Because they got the one out the way that was new and dissident elements, right? It's like Juali said, new more is going to come here with their eyes open, and they're going to put you old Moors in the back because you guys have been wasting time with this for 100 years. You're supposed to go help the people, and you're doing what you want to do with this, when this is supposed to be for the people. right? All organizations and their leaders are under constant 24-hour surveillance. It's a constant 24-hour surveillance. Right? The organizations are infiltrated organizations under surveillance. The Black Muslims, right? So that's NOI and Nation of Gods on Earth and all those people who talk about Allah and the black man's God and their Allah and whatever. Right? Anybody that follows the protocol of Islam from a black perspective, like that's the Black Muslims. Right? Student Non-Violating Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Congress of Racial Equality, Unity Movement, Group on Advanced Leadership, Freedom Now Party, United Black Nationalists of America, New Pan-African Movement, the National Urban League, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. So that's the 12. Right? Now, we look at it two ways. One, okay, how come the Moorish Science Temple is not on the list, right? And then we look at it from the perspective of, well, you know, they don't have jurisdiction, so they're not going to put this in the military document and all that stuff. But on the other hand, we just read from the FBI papers, right, that they infiltrated the temple.
And it's on a watch list.
And it's on a watch list and everything else. Right? So how is it that they're not on the list, but then there's FBI papers that's saying that they infiltrated? Like that's apparent contradiction. Right? Because it should be on the list. Right? But this is a military document. Right? And this military document applies to the minority. Moors aren't a minority. We're a threat, but we're not a minority. And this is specific to those people that call themselves blacks, quote, or comma, sorry, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites. That's the minority, according to this document, which is Executive Order 11490, October 19th, 1969. 69. So, you know, this is around that time. Right? In the event of widespread and continuing and coordinated racial disturbances in the United States, right, not in the United States of America, not the United States of America Republic, but in the United States. Different. So they're talking about that U.S. jurisdiction that's corporate, which equals down to anybody who has any type of offer and acceptance with that. That's who this is for. Anybody who has a contract with those people and didn't reserve their rights, didn't, you know, do anything with regard to protecting themselves in that contract, right? They could be held liable to what this says right here. They can be held responsible to this. This is what's going to be used to basically exterminate them and not make it look like they got exterminated, because it's a psychological attack in order to bring forth physical ends. Psychological means for physical ends, right? But again, it's only for blacks, which pretty much anybody who says that they're black and play that trap, that role, right? Indians, another fraud, because Indians are only indigenous to India. And this is not India. This is America. So you can't claim to be indigenous here as an Indian and still use the name Indian when Indians come from India.
Not the last. You don't
right.
talk about it until you
take it in, right? Because we don't learn, like Drew Ali said, we don't learn until we're at the point of the sword.
Yeah. See.
So we're at the point of the sword now with this Negro black colored crap that people are pushing.
Yeah.
Right? Because their position is exterminate the nigger,
for sure,
the black, the Negro, the Indian, the Puerto Rican, the Latino, the poor white. Exterminate. Not reform, not let's build a school for the minority and screw them. Like exterminate them.
What about Asians?
Blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites. Because the jurisdiction of this is only in the Americas. Right? Let's go to that part. Okay. Note, at the appropriate time to be designated by the president. Right? So, right now they have a black president. Right? Okay. Okay. They have a black president right now, and then this is the executive order authorized to counteract the minority. But the black president came out and said, I'm not a black president.
Okay.
Like he came out and said himself, I'm not black. What's that? So he's eliminated himself from the picture. He's not in the scope.
Does he understand his problem?
Right? Well, he knows what's going on because, you know, he's an agent. He was put in by them. Right? Don't forget, he's a minority being used just like, you know, black against black. Same thing that in Psycho. Right? Using us against each other. But that's on like a supreme level. Right?
You said that to other people. They get mad. They get upset.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. We'll see what Obama's doing, because don't forget, if this is a military document, like he's in on this. This is a military document. That means like this is the generals and those people.
Tell ass right now, you doing this.
Islam.
I ain't want no part of that. I want no part of that.
Straight up.
Funny dude.
Straight up, yo.
Funny guy.
Right. At the appropriate time to be designated by the president, the leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency, working with local public officials during the first critical hours. All other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled lists of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use the minority leaders designated by the president in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents with central and federal, and we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal King Alfred in all its aspects. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. So they have the plan, set, outline, and everything already. They already know what they're gonna do. They already know how they're gonna stimulate the ethers to stimulate the people to get them to do something, and then have this reaction that is in their benefit. Play it out already. But again, it only applies to the blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, minority. those sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it talks about using minority leaders to control the situation. That's why we say, you know, like, we're not leaders. Like, no one in the temple is a leader. We're not trying to be in a leader position. When we explain this movement to people, we explain that it's your movement. You know, we talk about the prophet, it's your prophet. Especially coming from the perspective of someone who's already learned, like, a substantial amount about it, to someone who needs to learn. Like, no matter if you're Chinese, Indian, Russian, whatever. Like, I know about Drew Ali. So when you're explaining that, when you're explaining to other people, once you, like, remember that, because as soon as they start looking at it like, oh, that's the black people's prophet, like, false concept.
Okay. Yeah.
Your prophet, yo. Like, you're gonna need him in your country at some point. Just like these people need him, like, soon, before any of this kicks off.
Universal prophet.
Right.
Exactly.
But if they think that they have these leader people, and then these guys already explained how they have these leader people in their pocket, then, you know what I mean? Yeah, we're gonna be here saying, look, nobody's telling you what to do, but, you know, take some knowledge, take a newspaper. They're gonna say no. When stuff kicks off, they're gonna want to find what the leaders have to say.
Find out what's going on.
Leader, what should we do? Leader people, right?
And then what? Leader people is going to be detained, right? According to this, so leader guy is not going to be there when they say, okay, leader, what do we do? Right? You know, you just have a bunch of crazy people just running around in a panic, right? And what did the thing say again? It's blacks do it to black. So you already know that, you know, too much boys get their shoes stepped on when the kicks off. Like, these guys can just sit back and just watch what's going on. Man's chain gets busted or whatever, or watch gets lost, hat gets hit off, falls on the ground. You're not gonna have to worry about race war and, you know what I mean, the majority, who they label as the minority, taking over. You just sit back and just watch the majority become a minority through self-destruction, self-termination. It's like, you know, Inspector Gadget, you know, the self-destruct. The chief always gets sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This measure will self-destruct. And then you're sitting there holding it like an idiot. You know? But what are you gonna do when it's you?
It's black status will self-destruct.
Yeah. Right? All the property is gonna go back to the government. That's not no lie.
It needs to self-destruct. I feel a lot more better just within myself, just knowing my status in my land. You know, I don't even watch those words in black, Negro. I just laugh at a white boy can come to me and say, yo, what's up, nigga? I'll be like, yo, what's up, nigga? What up, nigga? It's all good. You know yourself, you know? I'm straight.
That's part where you said that it's not unprecedented, where the people in government are going to be unseated, etc.
Yeah.
I assume they're talking about when they did their sorcery on us before and put us into slavery. It's almost as though what it looks like to me is that these people, okay, they got this thing wrapped up and tied to a nice little ribbon.
Oh yeah.
They had to have known about the prophet in order to concoct this plan in the first place, because they got a timeline. If this thing was established in 1969, and they're talking about unleashing it now with Obama as a president, let's say, or around this time, they have to have known where we were going to be at this point in history as well. You know, and this is crucial. This is what we got to understand. These people are not getting up one morning and deciding, well, let's do something to them. This is something that they live for and that they've been doing for a very long time, and they're going to continue to do.
Yeah.
And because we're still asleep. You know, we've been asleep for a long time, and they're just playing this game on us.
It's kind of work out to some of us who still spend.
Yeah, but the good thing now though is that they're being specific as to who they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're not just we'll just wipe them all out.
But they can't.
Right?
They can't.
They can't do that no more. The world's watching.
Right, the world's watching now.
More of a microscope.
Yeah. Right.
To deal with.
Because that's the biggest problem in the world. The world problem is what is the U.S. gonna do with the minority?
True. That's
serving no purpose over there.
Okay.
That we can take those buildings and have some corporations.
But on top of that, and alongside of that, is the whole thing about our nationality and our waking up. And they had to have known when this document was written way back in 1969, over 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, where we were going to be and how come. And just like the prophet predicted as well, right? He knew where we were going to be and what was going to be going on in our communities and who was going to be waking up and where the movement was going to be at that time too. In order for them to have that document printed or written at that time and all this stuff laid out for something that's going to happen 40 years later.
Okay, this is what they knew. This is what they knew at that time.
Yeah.
Right. This is what they knew at that time. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put in the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage and knows that no political asylum will be available to him in other countries.
Bound to the continent. How much plainer does it?
How much more do you need to hear?
And it ain't us saying it. It's them.
It's them. The enemy
so
trying to exterminate.
Paper. At least read this. Show this to them. Show it to them. They need to read it.
The greatest concentration of the minority is in the Deep South, the Eastern Seaboard, and the Great Lakes region and the West Coast. Great Lakes region.
And then that thing said Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, Joint Chiefs of Staff.
That's including the president.
Yeah.
He's commander in chief. That's his title. Yeah. So he had to be at that meeting as well. Whatever the president was driving at that time.
Yeah.
This is some serious stuff.
Yeah, but like you said, they must have known the prophet was even coming, right? So that takes you back. Like I'm looking at this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. Well, 100 years before that was the Henry Turner case. So before Drew Ali was even born, these Moorish Cherokee people won this case. So from they won the case, it was like they knew, okay, the prophet's coming soon. Like that guy, that Jesus of this time is coming soon, right? And then there was Reconstruction period in the 1850s, right? And they created this Canada Corporation, 1867, right? And when you talk about taking out the minorities from government positions, that was Reconstruction period. That was it.
That's right. That's what it says in that thing the Grand Chief just read. They're going to do it again, and it won't be unprecedented. It happened before.
And then every Moorish person after that was more wary of their appearance in the public eye, so that all the so-called Moorish or black presidents, right? They didn't want to be seen that way, right? Whether it be Hoover or Jefferson or whoever after Reconstruction, especially after that time, it was like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it was a must to pass because it was the color game started being played. Right? 14th Amendment had been passed. You couldn't just be anymore. You couldn't just be a person. You actually had to be, black or white. Before 1948, you could be a slave of any pigmentation of skin, and you could be a free white person having any pigmentation of skin. And that's the main cause of that thing, that when people, our people start to get a little conscious, we read about the past, we hold on. Like, we had it better back then. Like, it's not necessarily that, it's that, it's mainly due to that Reconstruction era, right? Where certain so-called laws were passed and amendments and so forth, right? So you couldn't, like, because when you look back, people were people before 1848. Like, yeah, a lot of people might have been slaves in a particular area, but they were people. Right? 14th Amendment, now they're corporations. Because why should, a certain group of people get rich off of, slavery?
So basically, when it comes to the Constitution, anything up from the first to the 10th Amendment is basically
Right. Yeah.
It's helping that person reserve the rights.
Right. And everything after it is an amendment, which was the corporate people latching on or grafting themselves on to the jure law of the land in order to commit their fraud.
Okay. Which is the precedent of taking the congressman out of their office. Because you couldn't be black anymore.
Yeah, because remember, they say minority, right? Remember that the Continental Congress was prior to the Congress. So the Continental Congress was really in charge, right? With John Hanson being the last man standing, basically, right? He set it up so that it's a dual government. It's not just Europeans own United States of America. How people's concept of it is that it's the Europeans. No, like, it's ours too. That's why there's a pyramid on the dollar bill, and the pyramid does nothing to do with masonry. The pyramid has to do with the pyramid. Like, who built the pyramids? Us. Okay, so then what's us? What's our thing doing in America? This is what black people need to look at. If you're black and you say that you come from Africa, okay, well, that's where pyramids are at. All right, well, that's on the dollar bill that you have in your pocket right now in America. Explain that. Why is that in America? But nah, that's the Illuminati symbol. You can't say that. You're making that up. You know what I mean? You don't know what you're talking about. All right, fine. King Alfred plan. I'm not worried. Like, I got nationality up here, so I don't need a card or paperwork or nothing to navigate. We navigate regardless, right? Right to travel. Right to travel doesn't mean get in a vehicle and turn the key. Travel is walking. Travel is take the bus. Travel is biking, rollerblades, skateboard, little electric bike, whatever.
Horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy.
Conveyance, your means of
your means of conveyance. On a spiritual level, we know our means of conveyance is the body, right? But on the earth plane, in the body now, what's your means of conveyance? You better be using your body, because that's exercise, and that's better than just sitting down behind the wheel. So this part now is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, an introductory programming manual. Operations Research Technical Manual, TMSW 7905.1. Right? So this is their stuff. So, it's from 1969. They talk about, it's not supposed to be revealed to the public, whatever, but, it's been out, because they have agents in their own thing that's trying to topple it from the inside. So they have their own problems that they have to worry about, right? So this is a problem that they set up to handle itself, so they can deal with the bigger issues that they have to handle. Like, there's $80 trillion debt owed to international banksters, and people are starting to proclaim their nationality. We're losing the collateral that we were going to use the human shadow resource that we were going to use, it's dwindling down. That's the other stock market crashing.
So
The backup, the reserve is crashing now. As Negro, Black, and colored people start proclaiming their nationality and getting out of this status.
So what, like you say, what are you gonna say? What happens when the reserve runs out?
No, I was gonna say when like martial law or whatnot comes in to play.
Yeah, that's when the reserve runs out.
That's when the reserve comes out.
Okay. Now they have to go out now and corral these cattle that are running around the barn, right? Because they came out of their confinement. But they didn't come out of their confinement by nationalizing.
Right.
They didn't come out of the confinement and say, you know what I mean, like, we are now the cows of the, so you can't touch us. You know what I mean? We're supposed to graze all over there. You're not supposed to have us eating grains and stuff like that. Like, we know that we're cows. We're supposed to eat grass. Why are you guys giving us grains? Like, okay, we're revolting from the plantation. We're revolting from the matrix.
So that only takes effect with people who are under that certain status. People,
right, but that status is a frame of mind.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, cow doesn't have intelligence, right? Because it's an animal, they say, right? But if you feed a cow grain, and get it used to grain, as soon as you give it grass, it's going for the grass.
Yes.
It's not going to eat the grain if the grass is there, right?
So how can it not have intelligence?
So how can it not have intelligence, right? Okay, so then when they break us down to the beast of the field that they said they did to the nigger, you know, break the nigger down, right? William Lynch and all that stuff, breaking down like a horse. And then just have him just do your will, put a leash on his neck, and then you just walk him around town. Like that's your pet.
Yeah.
And they talked about that in slavery. The people had a rope around the man's neck walking on the street saying, there, this is my nigger.
I used to do it to white people too.
Right. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right? But it's because of the mentality.
Yeah.
Because of the psychological, you know what I mean? The psychological wires are crossed in our people. Everybody else gets nationality. Everybody else understands it. Yeah, they understand it. They know what it is. Right? It's not something that they're taught. It comes through their mother. That's part of them. You know what I mean? Just like how, you know, like you know, like there's certain Asians that, out the womb, they eat steak and Tai Chi, no matter what.
And learning Japanese on Saturday.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just what you do.
Well, it's true. And I applaud them for it.
Yeah.
You know, they're honoring their foremothers and forefathers. What do we know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the silent weapons is the means of how they're getting their things done that they want to get done. Okay. Right? Silent weapons. Remember what I was saying, the psychological attack. A psychological offensive can be just as deadly as a physical offensive. In some ways, more so. So in this way, more so. To go with a silent weapon than a weapon that, you know what I mean, like, makes some noise and baits up the whole scene.
So it's belief. It's like when you're teaching us the knowledge of the right to travel, our status, it's more like how you were showing me the other day, because it's like it's a part of you. It's just, you just made the comment. You said it's not the documentation that makes you more. It's like your mind and your spiritual. Like you have to believe. Say anything.
Yeah. That's how easy. But that's how easy it is.
That's how easy it is.
People think it's, you know, papers and file the papers, and I need fiat because I can't file the papers, and how am I gonna? And this is just frustrating.
Yeah, we're caught up on the 2 stages of a 3-step ladder. We're caught up in the deletion phase. And you don't want to activate the fruition.
Right. Then that's really all it's about. Just activate fruition and everything's going to flow how it's supposed to flow. Because it's active.
Yeah, like the what do you call it? The function or the power or whatever. Man, know thyself. Yeah, that's part of it. But then know yourself, then you have to become what you know. And that's what man know thyself is. Like, be what you know. If you're not being what you know, then
Yeah, so this is silent weapon, right? Go to the history part. Secure silent weapons for quiet wars. All right. Historical introduction. Silent weapon technology has evolved from Operations Resource (OR), a strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management in England during World War II. The original purpose of Operations Research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. Logistics. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the methods might be useful for totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Social engineering, the analysis and automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly hanging economic information, data. So, a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer, invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and J. W. Marchley, filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simple method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician George B. Dantzig. Then in 1948, the transistor, invented by J. Borlian, W. H. Bratton, and W. Shockley, promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. With these three in positions of power, strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. In 1952, the original grant period terminated, and a high-level meeting of the elite was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Harvard Project had been very fruitful, as it is born out of the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering. Engineered in the last half-decade of the 1940s, is now quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in sparkling gold-plated hardware in the showroom floor by 1954. With the creation of the Moser in 1954, the promise of unlocking unlimited sources of fusion atomic energy from the heavy hydrogen in seawater and the consequent availability of unlimited social power became a possibility only decades away. The combination was irresistible. The Quiet War was quietly declared by the international elite at a meeting in 1954. Although the silent weapons system was nearly exposed 13 years later, the evolution of the new program system has never suffered any major setbacks. This volume marks the 25th anniversary of the beginning of the Quiet War. Already this domestic war has had many victories on many fronts through the world. In 1954, it was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power, for the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy sciences. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge, the end is control. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary, right? Or who's going to make the claim? In 1954, this was the issues of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such a people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined and responsible and worthy few. We'll stop there for a sec. So consequently, the interests of future world peace and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public. Right? The American public is the minority. The American public is the Negroes, the blacks, the coloreds, the poor whites, right? Because something must be wrong with them in order for them to get cast out by their own, right?
Yeah.
Something has to make them want to clump those particular Europeans or whites on our side in the denationalization process. And those are the ones that, you know, like, you know, when you know, we used to talk about, you know, white man can't jump. And then there was the one white dude like that could dunk.
Yeah.
Right?
One of them.
One of them. Those guys. Right, you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
You know? The down white guys. You know? They're not the wiggers, not the actor ones. The real ones that are down, right, for the cause, more than like black people.
What up, Dred?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Right?
Get out of here. Man.
So the American public is, you know, the Latinos and the Puerto Ricans, the South Americans, the people in the Caribbean, people in North America, and then the poor whites that got thrown into the mix, right? The ones that got casted out. Right? In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply the new weapons, which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. Right? And right, again, too, like, a silent weapon is them saying American public in here. Right? So they're basically telling the minority, well, if you proclaim your nationality and become American again, right, instead of these slave labels that you've adopted, we'll give you the pass. Because they can't do anything to the American public. They could only do things to the American public if they accept the offer to be Negro, black, colored, i.e. slave, corporation, property.
And then
There has to be offer and acceptance.
right, just to qualify that, in Weiss's concise trustee handbook again, there are two territorial jurisdictions created by the Constitution. The first is the territory, i.e. that designated portion of the Earth's surface which is deemed the imperially extensive real estate holdings of the nation, over which all power must be exercised within the strict letter of the Constitution. The second is the other property, quote unquote, i.e. a territory unincorporated but included into the Union of States, over which all power may be exercised strictly according to the mere spirit of the Bill of Rights as interpreted by Congress. The latter is subject to Congress outside the strict letter of guarantees of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. In the former, the federal government can have no direct control over the people, but by way of contract, because it is entering onto every scene equally subject to the same laws as all persons, as opposed to the latter, wherein the federal government can have full and direct control over people who are beneficiaries of this jurisdiction. As noted earlier, they may act as they see fit, i.e. as trustees for the benefit of public policy regulations known as codes and statutes of this jurisdiction. So, in other words, according to Weiss's concise trustee handbook, there are two jurisdictions created by the Constitution. And for the people who want to gobble up the cake, then it says the federal government can have full and direct control over people who are beneficiaries of this jurisdiction. It's telling you right there.
Yeah.
You can have full and direct control over these people. But if you know who you are, in the former, the federal government can have no direct control over the people, but by way of contract. Because it is entering onto every scene equally subject to the same laws as all persons. So when you know who you are, then the entire United States government just becomes like another person sitting at a table beside you. And it's just, sorry, no, I don't want to talk to you. Oh, you want something? This is going to cost you. No, you can't have this. This is mine. Like, that's what it is. Yeah. Right? That's what it is.
Descriptive introduction of the silent weapon. Everything that is expected from an ordinary weapon is expected from a silent weapon by its creators, but only in its own manner of functioning. Okay. So, silent weapons are created in order to cause as much damage as you can with like an ordinary weapon that you would create, and more. So if there's a physical atomic bomb, then there's an atomic bomb silent weapon that they have at their disposal to use anytime when they're ready. Right? But like they're saying, if it's based on the people, whether this happens or not. It's based on how they react to situations. Their reaction is gonna determine whether King Alfred gets kicked in like immediately, or if they're gonna have to create some other things to try to, you know, keep everything balanced, right? Because they want it like a roller coaster, right? That's how they want it, not otherwise, right? It shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of chemical reaction explosion, originating from bits of data instead of grains of gunpowder, from a computer instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of a military general. It makes no obvious explosive noise, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's daily social life. Yet it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and unmistakably interferes with daily social life. The public cannot comprehend this weapon, and therefore cannot believe that they are being attacked and subdued by a weapon. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, they cannot express their feeling in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. There goes again, not having intelligence, bringing you down to the level of a beast in order to deal with you under your duress, or when you're under duress, or under coercion. Therefore, they do not know how to cry for help and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against it. They do not know how to cry for help and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves. They're telling us right in this thing, do not know how to associate with others means do not know how to nationalize. Do not know how to become a political body and put a gate around yourself in the jurisdiction that is trying to oppress you and protect yourself. Which is what Noble Drew Ali did with the Moorish Divine and National Movement since 1913, 100 years ago, that nobody wants to consider. But they're going to consider everything else that was set up by these agents that we read in the beginning of King Alfred Plan. The infiltrators. Because remember, they don't take the infiltrators out after the job gets done. The infiltrators stay in there and continue doing whatever work they're there to do. And many organizations that are people, or not even say are people, many organizations that are on this list in King Alfred Plan, their heads right now, 2012, are agents. Like are agents. Like, you know how they have a program where they hide people, change their identity and all that type of stuff? Okay, they have a program like that in order to pay people. They have a program like that to say, well, you know, we're going to say we gave this money to these people, but it really went to the agent. Right? Who's rallying for his people, saying that, yeah, we don't have enough, when he has enough, he could give everybody a little cut. And he's not even doing that. Or she's not even doing that. Right? When a silent weapon is applied gradually to the public adjusts, adapts to its presence, and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure becomes too great and they crack up. Right? So when the silent weapon is applied gradually to the public adjusts, adapts to its presence, and learns to tolerate its encroachment. So how much times did a white whatever shoot a black guy? Like lots of times. You know, we just, you know, it just happens and we just chill. We deal with it. Happens again, and you know, we march, picket, you know, whatever, we deal with it. It happens again and we do some other stuff and we deal with it. It happens again and then we do stuff that we know that didn't even work last time we did it. And we still do it. Right? Right? You know what I'm saying?
They just told us that they forgive them.
But they don't even say that they forgive them, because they're saying kill cracker. So you obviously don't forgive them if you're saying that you want to get them off the planet and come on, let's let it be sunny so they can die from the heat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not getting rid of them. right? They adjust and adapt to its presence. They adjust and adapt to, the hypocrisy. That, the Bible says Jesus is dark skinned, and then you have a European picture on the wall. Right? They adjust and adapt to the fact that, they're compromised, but they don't want to admit it. And they don't want to admit that it's them either. So they say, okay, you know what? We'll just deal with it. Yeah, it hurts, but we'll just deal with it. 50 strokes because I took a piece of corn? Well, alright. I'll just deal with it. I just won't steal corn next time. Right? And they do this on and on and on and on and on until like you're gonna blow. You're gonna blow. Right? Therefore, the silent weapon is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, opinions, and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking their sources of natural and social energy and their physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses. So they're not feeding only off your strengths, they're feeding off your weaknesses too. Right?
This is like the spider and the cockroach.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Just sit there and just suffocate you to death. Right? Yeah. Right? So the table of strategies. Right? Do, to, or to get. Keep the public ignorant, you get less public organization. Access to control points, including prices and sales, you get less reaction to outputs for feedback. Create preoccupation, you lower defenses. Attack the family unit, you control the education of the young. Give them less cash and more credit and doles, you get more self-indulgence and more data. Attack the privacy of the church, destroy faith in this sort of government. So they're admitting that religion is government. Right? They're admitting that religion isn't God worship and whatever. If you attack the privacy of the church, you destroy the faith in this sort of government. So King Afro plans like putting everything out there for Negro, black, colored people because this is your like we're through. We're done with it now. It's either extermination or connect yourself back to the human family. By no more giving you, the more babies you have, the more money you get. What kind of system is that? And then it's only certain people that are on those programs. Right? Poor whites, all the minorities. Poor whites, blacks, Hispanics, Puerto Ricans, Latinos.
This kind of work.
Right? There's more. There's more. Social conformity. And to get social conformity, you do social conformity and you get computer programming simplicity. You minimize the tax protests, you get maximum economic data over minimum enforcement problems. Stabilize the consent coefficients, you get simplicity. Tight control of variables for simpler computer input data, greater predictability. establish boundary conditions, get problem simplicity over solution of differential and difference equations. Proper timing equals left data shifting and blurring. Minimum resistance to control, you get maximum control. Maximize control, you get ultimate objective. Collapse of currency, destroy the faith of American people in each other. And then the end.
Because right now they're collecting the coins.
Right. Right.
People are giving it up. People are giving the coins.
Collapse the currency.
Without even saying, well, okay, if I give you so much coin, you have to give me a check. You have to give me something in writing. They just haven't got
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're change machines. You just want your change.
Yeah. And you gotta pay too for them changes.
Exactly.
They take 3 cents off a dollar.
3 cents on the dollar.
I take mine to the bank if you're gonna give. I want my whole dollar.
Of course, because so much coin you make a dollar.
But it's the whole mentality. It comes back to the very beginning of this class where we are what we believe we're supposed to be based on this whole history that we've been taught.
Yeah.
History, or whatever you want to call it. We think we're slaves, and we got to settle for second best. Yeah. And that's it. Everything else falls under that category, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
I was doing some research on the Black Panther Party, like getting down, and I came across stuff I didn't even know and stuff, right? But the Black Panther Party, like whatever, that's another story. But the whole unraveling on what actually happened was actually the King Alfred plan. Like that's how they designed it for that era.
Yeah.
For
69,
those people,
yeah.
69 for those, and that's when the Black Panther Party was from 68 to 70, or 64 to 70. Like it was only like a 8 year period span. Yeah. All that stuff happened within the short period of time, and it was the King Alfred plan was designed it was designed for that. So everything that's going on now is the result of that, and that it's not a joke. It's not just something people saw that leaked out from the CIA, that people got their hands on this plan that they're thinking of doing or wanting to implement. That was actually what they implemented, and it has worked. As you were saying,
it's working because it triggered up
real talk
with the parliament, and people don't question the government. Then they start coming up that they're going to do this and they're going to stop this and they're going to do that. People just sort of easy because people are working their plan.
Right. So
it's going to stay this way. It's going to stay this way. Yeah. It's going to stay this way until we do something about it.
And that's why we put in the name of the class that it's King Alfred Plan, 1969, until the minorities exterminated. Because this is it. International community came out with Declaration of the Rights of a Child. Every child must have a nationality. They don't want to go do it. International community came out and said rights of human beings. Everyone has the right to a nationality. Nobody can be deprived of their nationality. You can change your nationality anytime you want to whatever else you want to do. We don't care. Just proclaim your nationality. Nah, they don't want to do it. They want to be black, Negro, colored, African people, all these other labels. Right? Came out again. And they said, okay, we're going to do it for indigenous people.
1994.
And all indigenous people have right to their nationality, and nobody shall be deprived of their nationality. Like, that's what Noble Drew was talking about when he said that I'm going to be right. Repeat myself. He's not talking about Moors get arrogant and think he's talking about them when he says I'm going to repeat myself, because well, you know, who else would the prophet speak to if it's not through a Moor? Well, not really, because he came for the nations. So it might just be somebody who doesn't look like you that's going to be telling you. And it's people who don't look like us that's telling us. But because all of them decide to be Masons, and they know the code, right? And then we throw it away, because we think that it's some evil thing that nobody can't belong to, right? then of course we're not gonna know what's going on.
Well, it's one interpretation. That happens for
Yeah.
if we today in our meetings everywhere in the city, we're too naive.
Yeah.
We don't, we don't, it's not enough. We're that brainwashed. We've been taught to be that gospel.
Yeah.
That we don't even stop thinking about it. They were done by us.
Yeah, our own people.
Our own people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's happening all over today.
Yeah.
And I tell you, there is an army of them out there.
Yeah.
And what they do, whether they give them $2 or what.
Yeah.
When you make a decision, because I get that means it. Because I exist on the meetings that I think I should go to and more information and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they were done.
Yeah, for sure.
And well, as a part of what the whole plan.
Yeah.
And of course they got that too. That's part of it. Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But then the question that I'm asking the Masons for the Moors take themselves African, but they, like they are Masons.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're really knowledgeable.
No, they're not.
About a lot of this.
No, they're not.
So although they claim it, well, I don't know if they claim it, but they have become Masons.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't really.
Yeah, so if they can't become Masons, what's them dressing up in a fez that says I'm a Mason, an apron? What's that doing? What's that doing? But it's specifically black people, black men can't be Masons. That's why they have them branched off in a separate thing called Prince Hall. But that's their stuff. And then the black guys that join, they're not allowed to really know the secret.
In the hall. Everyone else is in the room.
Yeah, right? The prince gets the hall, and everybody else is in the room.
They're in the room talking about stuff.
You don't get a chair.
These niggas are in the hall. We're talking about chilling in the friggin' hall,
At the door with the ear to the door, you know what I mean?
Oh, they got Kabasi.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna ask you is, since a lot of I don't know if you're saying temples are being infiltrated, or just places are being infiltrated, which way are you preparing, or are you strategizing to prevent people from coming into that family and infiltrating it?
Well, for us, from experience, those people get weeded out. You gotta do nothing. It's too fire around here for some people. Like for real, being dead honest. You know what I mean? Because we've been infiltrated as far as like our specific temple. Yeah, it's happened like numerous times.
Agents,
people coming in. Yeah.
You can't infiltrate a natural person.
That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of those organizations in the States or wherever that are going around the world, without the infiltration, they're still not pure within themselves. They're not being genuine. Because, and that's the thing, like that's real. Like if you're pure, something contaminated cannot come in there.
Come in the realm.
The pureness is gonna take over that contamination in a second.
Unless
that thing
joins
already somewhat contaminated. It's not truly pure. It just presents itself to be that. Like your immune system. Yeah, like immune to it. It's there, but and then our spirit, like
depending on it, especially the way we're trying to move and conduct ourselves. It's coming from such a divine, genuine essence that like it's gonna be like it brought in the open or to light right away, because it's like shit. What am I gonna do to really infiltrate, to break down this movement?
Yeah,
it's like the thing on the 407, like that was, I would say, the closest. But they got not physically close, but like that was the closest.
Yeah, and that was a good silent record.
Yeah, but like.
Yeah, but it ain't nothing because, you know.
We're not stupid, that's the thing. Nothing on their plane, they're dumb. They have no common sense. Now people around the place have no common sense. And that's the difference between us. We break down to build up. So we can't, we're not missing no pieces. Like, we're not leaving nothing out. And there's a long list of stuff that I could do. So like a person who might be like sitting there taking notes, and then I decide, I think you've been damaging me, so I'm going to put a lien on you. Look at the definition of lien, because that's how I operate. And then there's other people who have other knowledge, and we're connected with more all around the United States who are doing stuff on the daily. Like those, like I said, corporate people don't want to mess with natural people. Like it's not a good look.
And what
you're getting crushed.
Yeah, and what the U.S. is saying is that we are the corporate people, and we don't need other corporate people leeching off of our.
Right. And that's
because it's ours. Like you don't have any right to it. You said that you slave, you came from Africa. Like why are you leeching off of us? And they want to sever the ties, and they've been wanting to sever the ties, but they can't sever the ties because if they sever the ties, then they're going to give up the fact that they're bound to this continent by heritage, and no political asylum will be available to them in any other country, so you can't do nothing with them. They're stuck here with this problem that you have, right? So they decide, well, then we'll just build jails, and we'll use the King Alfred plan to vibrate the ethers and make them step on each other's shoes, kill each other. Now we got two in there, right? And then put this one on the corner and have him sell to this one, and then and we'll set an agent in, that has a little bit more, so that these two guys could fight now for, and it's repetitive theme.
It's not like you said. It's from that perspective. It's like a need, right? It's not just a thing. It's not just internal. It's like the international banks are asking them, where's you borrow money, you gotta pay it back.
Yeah, like don't think that.
And they're saying, well, we got all these assets, but they don't do anything. They just sit and they take from us. Like my assets draining me. They sitting on the couch, taking welfare and shit. I can't pay you back. You think the international bank cares? International bank don't care. I want something. Like you already took the gold, right? And then you wrote IOUs and said that you have all these people who are productive, but apparently, you have a lot of them who aren't productive. But that's not my problem. I want what you owe me, and that's a contract. And that's spiritual. That's what people don't understand, right?
That's why.
And then that's why the world is going into debt right now.
Right. Juali came and made it easy. He said, if you don't do anything, just declare your nationality. Because, I don't know what else to tell y'all. I gave you the Circus 7, you didn't want it. I gave you the 101 questionnaire, you didn't want it. I gave you, temples and, the title to your vast estate. I give you everything. But you don't want it. Okay, well, if you don't do anything else, at least proclaim your nationality. Declare that at least.
Yep.
They don't want nothing.
slaves and other themselves. However, people who came from Africa, many of them were Moors, and also even during slavery, fought to be free because they were Moors.
Yeah.
And although they were from Africa, I mean, they actually came from Africa.
Yeah.
They were Moors.
Yeah.
And even during slavery, so that the fact that they were not ridiculous to, at least for right now anyway, but right now they were not ridiculous to North America.
Right.
I think we have to be mindful that there were Moors who came from the continent.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what it's about, is the accuracy of the terms.
Yeah.
When you said the last time from the continent, that's an accurate statement. But if you say you're from Africa, that doesn't even really, like, it's the word game with that. If you say you're from the continent and were brought here, whatever, to the slavery, that makes sense, because there are some. But if you say any one of those people say that they came from Africa, that is an incorrect statement, and that's what's making them a slave. They're not telling their proper story, because they didn't come from Africa. They came from over there on that continent, but that continent has a lawful name, not Africa. And now that's the trick. It's just that part.
For me, that's not the point. The point is that land entitles them to be Moors.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the
point. But that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
No, but that's what they're not. But that's what they're not doing. They're saying that, yeah, I came here I came to this land from Africa, and they made me a slave. Okay, so, and well, they made me a slave. So I want reparations for everything that they did. So plaintiff and error. Next. Oh, you guys are racist. You guys don't want to give me my stuff back because no. If you don't have a nationality, right? They could even say African Moors. If you're really from Kemet, I'm glad you found your culture. Attach more to it. Don't be ignorant. Because the last fallen name is more. So even if you're Cushite, Hebrew, whatever you want to call yourself, you have to attach more to it in order for it to have validity. No, ignorance is no excuse. Yeah, but it's not blame. Because ignorance of the law is no excuse.
It's accountability. Yeah,
like us,
that negative mind frame. It's really all positive.
Granted, and that was the objective of people coming into the Moorish movement, to go tell people who don't know. And if they don't accept it, then you got King Alfred plan waiting for you. Because that's the only option. Nationalize or die. Like, there's no options right now. It's either you're going to say that you're El, Bay, Al, or Ali, or whatever they're going to do to you. Right? Whether it's incinerate you, whether it's just, point you out, it's just, your lucky day that you happen to be the person that, the white guy has to come and shoot to make an example now, because you don't have a nationality and you're not exercising as a national supposed to exercise.
Well, I think you're going to have to fight it whether you're more or whatever you are. You're going to have to fight it, or that's not the right word. It doesn't protect you from. It doesn't protect you.
That's people's misinterpretation.
I don't.
Right.
Well, after all, it took. It took them to throw Ali out, and they've been taking a lot of other people out too.
No, but they didn't take him out. That's what we were talking about in the beginning. It was his own people that took him out. It wasn't like some European infiltrated.
I'm not so sure that they were working independently.
No, regardless whether they're independent or not, the person who did it, right, looked like Noble Jawali. The person who killed Malcolm X looked like Malcolm X.
The point that I'm making, though, is that it doesn't really guarantee you, personally, me, that it would be that way. It doesn't really guarantee me, because what they did back there, they are doing today.
So that's like
They're doing it right now. Here.
And that's what I brought up yesterday, right? Which,
So,
regardless of what you're gonna go through, which status you want to be in.
I do what I do on the basis of principle, but I know those people and I know how they work and I know how I don't know what it's in people that they so eagerly and easily cooperate and work with these people, but they do.
Yeah, that's just their position.
I believe in, and what happens happens. But
yeah, for sure.
I know what my principles are.
Right, but that's what it's about. But it would still, just like the brother was saying, it is still more logical to live on principles as a Moor than a black person.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yeah, we are more.
Right.
Other people know nothing.
Right, and that's where people have to get to, because it's nationalize or die. They might think that they have options because, you know, they can go to the store and buy some sneakers and they can go eat out at some place and, you know, they have some money in their pocket and they have a job and, yeah, all that's cool. All that's good. But when you're looking at something like King Alfred Plan that is blatantly telling you to please proclaim your nationality or we're going to exterminate you,
He scared the hell out of you in the process,
right?
So that you give up, because you're put in the mind frame to be fearful. You know, the Illuminati and everything, that's the point. Fear, the pastor, fear. That even if they have the intention, it does not have power unless you give it. So there's the reality of it happening, yes, but what are we going to do about it? It's there, but we can't walk around as we're not doing, like we're not the people that are doing it. But what out there, the plan was to keep people in that mentality, that they have this power over them because they're infiltrating us, they're doing all this, which is true. However, they've always been doing it. That does not determine our success or failure. It doesn't. They will always be in our organizations. They will always be. Just like we'll always be in theirs, right? So what it is now is we are trying to strengthen each other, to be that strength for each other here, so we can move on and get this stuff dealt with. Because all of the Negro, blacks, and colors, everyone that calls themselves Negro, black, colors are in their house. That's what I mean, like. You know what I mean? And then they're going to have, like, for example, those who know that they're Moors are just starting to come to class, but they're still in the corporate structure. Like Jawali says, some of my best Moors are still in the church.
And now cutting it, he said the Moors are a dangerous people. I am not going to wake you all up at once. If I do, I wouldn't be able to do anything with you myself. So here the prophet is saying, as you know, the messenger, because it's more than just physical. It's more than just a physical war we fight. It is also spiritual. Right?
And like, as far as him, whatever, like, okay, we just say we weren't part of him getting taken out and they took him out, whoever they is. If he had decided to say, you know what, this shit is freaking crazy. It's never going to change. No one's going to wake up. They're not going to acknowledge that we're Moors. And these things are just going to get worse and worse. And he decided to
throw in the towel. Yeah.
But he not do that. He kept going because he knows. All the prophets kept going. They don't stop. They don't stop just because.
Because it's a job that they were assigned a long time. Right? So it was assigned to it. So when they come down, it's destined. They have to do it.
And they have the same duty.
And in order for someone to reach that nirvana or that Christ, they have to not fear death. That's a step. You cannot
fear death, because that's what they hold against you, is your fear of death, which doesn't naturally exist.
Exists, right.
Right.
Or the fear of death.
Which is
There's another one
The
too.
fear of death is the death fear.
That's the death.
That's the silent weapon. They could jump out the closet and scare you, you know, or they could play with you while you're sleeping.
Coming through the door.
You know what I mean? Or they come through the floor. You know what I mean? Right? So quickly we're gonna run down now is just for Negro, Black, Colored, because we've been getting it's the currency's picking up, right? And people are messaging us regular. Oh, I want to know how to nationalize. How do I nationalize? What's this about? Right? So first thing, right? First thing is that it's your birthright. It's not anybody else's to sell to you, loan to you, lean to you, copy and give to you. Like nothing like that. It's completely yours. It's completely yours. And Noble Drew Ali did everything already. All you have to do is claim it and be willing to die for that. Just like we're willing to die for everything else, right? That doesn't mean anything.
Die for the other side.
Right? We're going to die for the other side. We're going to go enlist in their army to go fight their war against somebody on the other side of the world that I never had no problem with. But I'm going to go kill that guy. But then this punk officer or whatever that's bothering me every day, robbing me, you know what I mean? 50 G's, 80 G's, 100 G's, $50,000, $100 million got robbed by the police. But these guys aren't going to do nothing to those guys, right? But they're going to tell their son, yeah, don't go in the army. Yeah. Go fight for the country. When you're fighting for a democracy, you're fighting for a corporation. Deception, right? So first thing is nationality and birthright. As far as more belongs to any dark-skinned person. That's your birthright. You can take it and use it if you want to use it. You can take it and not use it if you don't want to use it. Because it's not something that somebody can give or take. It belongs to the people. And through studying, you'll learn how to activate it. You don't need a card or papers or whatever. The more people that you know, because they already know what the names are. They already know that El, Bey, Day, Al, and Ali are the names of the Moors. They already know that. They already know that the predominant names, the names that are used mostly, are El and Bey. They know that. As far as the people out there. So it's just you get in a situation, put that on the name. But remember that once you put that on the name, now you have to go with that now. Because it's a spiritual move.
Yeah.
So don't think we're putting it out there. Yeah, go and put El Bey on your name. And then you get in a situation and you El Bey on your name. And then, you know what I mean? You get out your situation. You're like, damn, this is pretty interesting. I'll just, you know, and then you decide to go back to the old name. Right? And go do some stuff. And then try to come right back to it's not going to work. Because, you know what I mean? It's offer and acceptance.
That's playing the game operating in two different jurisdictions with the intent.
With the intent.
To make benefits.
What's the intent? Right? What's the intent?
Conspiracy that's right. 5 years.
Because we're already a beneficiary through the prophet. Right? Like we're a beneficiary to the same thing that he was a beneficiary to. That he got through his uncle. Which was, you know, just natural. It wasn't, you know, he had to, because, you know, the family was tighter back then than it is now. Right? Like back then, you don't have to say, that's my uncle and that's my nephew. Like you know, it's like grass. You just know that that's what it is. So he's already entitled to whatever it is that I have, you know. You have your favorites or whatever, you know. But some of them you just know that this one's special. I'm gonna give him a good chunk because I know he's gonna be doing something with it. So, being sent to do something with it, you know. And like even I'll touch on this too, just so that people could know what the perspective of the temple was during the prophet's time. Okay. At a meeting where the holy prophet was present, he saw 10 Arabians, 5 Turks, 2 Chinese, and 1 Japanese join the Moorish Science Temple of America. The secretary asked the holy prophet, "Prophet, these people have their nationality. What should I put on their nationality card?" The Moors were the first people, and all other people that use our name were adopted into our tribe. Give all members a tribal name of the Moorish to let them know that they have rejoined with the founders of the human family. The MSTA does not have the power to issue nationality or change man from their descendant nature of his forefathers. But here everyone must proclaim their free national name as we are teaching our people their nationality. So that's our job. Uplift fallen humanity.
Teaching, not giving.
Teaching, not giving. Not that, because it's not for us to give it. Not because we can't give it. Because it's not for us to give it. Because it's yours.
It's already yours, but if you forgot, we'll teach you.
We'll teach you.
And that's the Rex 84 program.
Right.
That's infiltration. Just dismantling from that simple fact
that
there.
Simple concept.
That's infiltration. And then everything else stems from that. Then inputting people in groups, because these groups are now splintered off into a next direction. So you can now place people in groups, because now people grouped up when it shouldn't have grouped up. You just have temple consulates teaching people, and you just live as a national. No more need for the group, because there is the group. The temple, the university is the group. The need for groupism as we're social beings.
So once you hear
belonging,
group, organization, association, you know, temple, whatever, be weary.
Okay.
Right? Because that's infiltration. The nation can't be infiltrated. Yeah, you can infiltrate a group. Just like the Vanguard said. Yeah, like
Change one word.
Change one word. Infiltrate. But you can't do that to the nation.
But even if there is such thing as there has been for the groups, etc.
Yes.
Look at the documentation. When they went in to infiltrate, right? They went in, and what did they find out? Are we subversive? No,
exactly.
We said we're not going to war.
Right.
Is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Were we thieves or murderers?
Right.
No. So we have no fear of infiltration, A. And B, just to address Sister Gloria a while ago regarding the declaring of the nationality, right? And how can you have a guarantee that it's going to protect you? Well, it's like buying a lottery ticket. You're either going to win or you're not, but you sure as hell ain't going to win if you don't buy a ticket. It's that simple, you know. So I mean, it's not a big, it's not a difficult thing to do, but it's a lifeline, you know.
Maybe it also, like before what she said, and then it kind of coincides. But I was thinking about something, because you know I deal with the registration form. It's always on my mind. So I'm thinking to myself, like, what's the problem with people wanting to really fill out the registration form and be a part of the temple? When all your life, that's what you were doing, filling out applications, registrations, not really knowing the essence of where it's coming from, and you just accept it and go along with it, and you've been doing it all your life. But now something that is for your salvation, and that your brother is bringing, or your sister is bringing to you, you're so skeptical, and you want to scrutinize it to the point where it's like,
You know what?
That's
This ain't for me.
You know?
But everything else that is not for you is for you.
Thank you.
Fill out the application for Facebook.
Yeah.
Right?
Fill it out for YouTube.
Everything.
Bothers me, like,
Everything.
Stuff that
They make you feel like,
government, FBI. Yeah, okay, sure.
what are you giving up? Like, what did you, like, you gave up stuff by signing those, all those other documents.
Right.
So, like, you gave up rights for privileges and stuff like that. So, what are you really giving up? Or what are you so afraid? Like, that's what it is. It's a real fear of letting go of your comfort zone or the things that you've been conditioned and programmed to do and think.
The root cause of every single ailment there is known to existence. Fear.
Trust me.
Every single ailment started with the spiritual fear. Something feared something. It went against, is scared of the natural process of creation. And I heard of someone I was reasoning with today was saying, instead of going with the current, they got them to turn against the current.
That's the way the brain.
See that?
That's what
Wow, that's the end of the day.
It triggers something in your body,
Yeah.
and it sends
It
out.
sends out messages. Sends out messages.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And that's like, it's like the you know, the secret shit, whatever, the law of attraction,
Okay.
one of the laws, like, when you put out, what you project is what you get.
Right. This is the war that we're in. This is the war that our people are going through. The deal. That's respect for the topic of the class. Right?
So, brothers, sisters, Negro, black, colored people, even if you want to be black, put more on it. Even if you want to be Negro, put more on it. Even if you want to be colored, put more on it. At least you have a little chance of stalling them from exterminating you, right? Because that's the most that you could do right now, stall them. And the best way to stall them is proclaim your nationality. That'll definitely stall them, right? You know, there's people saying, oh, well, nationality can't stop bullets. Well,
Neither can no nationality.
neither can no nationality. Right?
It can take your car and your house from you if that bullet doesn't kill me.
Right?
After I put a lien on your sorry self.
Right? So it's about just accepting it as yours. Whether you want to accept it or not is up to you. It doesn't matter. Like, more is going to be doing what we do because this is just what we have to do, right? But like Prophet said, what's all you Moors doing here? There's only going to be a handful of you saved, and I'm going to have fingers left over. I could count how many of you are going to be saved on my hand and have fingers left over.
Alright, there you go.
Oh, that kind of scared brother right there.
Right?
He said, you're not one of them.
Oh no, oh no.
Yeah, that's how serious we have to digest what, because this is the prophet. It's not just some dude covering about some liberation for his people and all that. This is the prophet. Yes, there's false gods and we can't trust everybody, but we never trusted Noble Drawley before, so don't even judge the book by its cover.
True.
You know what I mean? We trusted everybody else. Right?
Still trusting them.
To reach nowhere. Up to now, still trusting them. Right? Know that they're infiltrated and all that. Know that they're the agent.
See pictures of them with communists.
No, that's something to bring up, yo.
And still,
Right.
and still,
And when we know something is not right, and you do nothing about it, right? Like, if you know, like, if we're being nice, and we know it, we're still doing it. That's actually an ego problem. You would think it would be the opposite. You would think that if you're putting yourself up in front and only thinking about yourself first, that you would have an ego issue, but it's actually the opposite. If you're not thinking of yourself and you're putting everybody in front of you, your ego issue, or in this case, is if the people are not, if the people see something that's obvious and are not dealing with what's in front of their face, they have an ego problem. That's what's actually going on, is that they can't humble themselves to actually deal with the situation. So they're allowed to go, but the result looks the opposite. As if the person who's like, I know myself and I love myself, they don't have the ego problem. Right? So it's like our problem with our people is ego.
Because I could do something about it,
But I'm not.
Right.
You think you're on this thing.
Like if
Yeah.
that's
Right.
you're too good to sacrifice yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he already did it for us. Or because I'm a member of this higher society. Right? That we don't mix with peasantry, or we don't have to deal with like all kind of excuses. To just feed our ego. To feed the ego of people. And they put that in place. That's King Alfred plan.
Sure.
So all the black groups and all this black power is to feed your ego. Right? To be in fear of the cracker. Cracker's doing this, the cracker's doing that. And this person is doing that, this person doing that. And like Illuminati, put Ike out there and all they do is talk about how scary things are.
Right.
Scary this and the lizards are going to
Lizard people coming down.
Yeah, and it's just scary, scary, scary. That's the infiltration.
Yeah. It's loud.
Especially Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He's the most like they kind of bust their bubble with that one. I'm like, come on. So you give out, there's some info on it that I'll be like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't know. Whitney Houston was sacrificed by
Yeah.
And then after I'm like, hold on here. Let me remember who it's coming from. And then after you compare the story to what he's saying, it's like you're taking us on some other journey about Whitney Houston.
Sure, with the black metaphysician.
Yeah, exactly. Right. 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 All because they changed the objective of what nationality is and what group is. So took the group to bigged up the groupism thing for us. And no one gives a damn about what you do and your personal. I mean, you have that freedom.
So, Islam. That's that.
Alright, so just a quick. This class brought to you by Iron Sheik 4 Rapper Inquisition.
Yeah, straight up. Live and direct.
Live and direct, yo.
Quick note
The
too.
one.
I was just thinking about something. I thought about it before, but like from the infiltration perspective, if like Goddess Mocha was saying, if that's the case, then at the time when they were the FBI was trying to find out if the Moorish Science Temple, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, was an advocate of the Japanese during the Vietnamese or the Vietnamese War.
The
Japanese, right? Okay, right? And if there was something that was like wrong with the movement, like they would have been done from then. Affiliating with that, they would have been demolishing temples over here.
Exactly.
They wouldn't throw bombs, but they'd be demolishing temples.
And then even
bombs still
on their own land.
even with the temple having a Japanese in the temple, even it would imply that maybe
these people are
conspiring.
Them, right.
Yeah.
But that
didn't happen. They didn't
walk under the bridge.
Yeah, that just passed through. That was never the issue.
Shit.
Right? Because of the dodge drafting too. The draft dodging. Yeah. The draft dodging too was like you're supposed to go in there and serve the US against the Japanese. Not not serve the US.
Yeah.
And what for the Japanese? That's like easy target if they were not in proper person.
Yeah.
If they were just merchandise, of course that's a good excuse.
It's like I said, it's scary. Like for corporate to deal with natural people, a natural nation, dangerous, man. And once they realized Drew Ali was sincere and that, he's not a guy who went and like got supported or got sponsored by any
corporate,
foreign or corporate or international group, they were like, well, get it. Let's just put a guy on the 407 and mess with him and put an image out. Let's not actually like touch people. Because yo, that's dangerous. Like, that's dangerous. Nationality order. People don't understand, but
they'll get it.
they'll get it.
One kick in the ass by the cracker. They'll get it.
Hopefully not too many Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, you know, because they're heating it up right now. It's too much. So we'll close out. So Islam to all the viewers and everybody in presence. Islam to the Canaanland, all the staff. Islam. We're gonna close out. Allah, the mother and father of the universe.
Allah, the mother and father of the universe.
Mother and father of love.
Mother and father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
And
justice. Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide. And our salvation. By night. And by day. Through a holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Islam, Don't sleep.
Yeah, man.
So what we're
Get you on.
any other opportunity?
Shoot it, for Wednesday.